Well, howdy. It's Monday, November 6th. It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast, and you are hanging out with a bunch of old fogies and some young people too, all relatively speaking. Um, we've got a full plate, I guess, today. Um, Tim Swenson's going to talk about this rescue of stuff that happened. So we got an email on the groups.io list. And let me just share my screen real quick here. I want to share that. So we got this email on the groups.io list, and this guy Bill Miller had passed away, and his family. I don't know if they moved all the stuff in the garage, but all the stuff is in the garage here clearly. And Bill, in case you can't tell based on that sign right there in the middle, Bill was part of the Bay Area Timex Sinclair users group who published Timelines. Is that right, Tim? I think it was Timelines was their newsletter. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Timelines.
Okay. So and Bill was not just a Sinclair person. There's an apricot in the background. I think in the upper right hand corner is a televideo terminal that's kind of a clone of the ADM Lear Sigler terminals. There's a mystery thing over there on the right. I see an Epson box. There was a lot of stuff. There was some Amigas and Commodores and all kinds of
I
stuff.
don't think anybody is just a Timex person, right? I mean, I may have been, one of the computers, but yeah, I don't think that any of us just that was one and done. I don't think so.
Well, oops, Carl's correct. Most of us are not just Timex folks. Anyway, so we got this email, and Tim and Lewis went over there and looked at the stuff and rescued a bunch of it. And Tim is going to tell us a little bit about Bill, a little bit about all of this stuff, and how it's going to get out of his house.
Yeah. All right. So basically, for background, I met Bill Miller back 85, 86-ish, thereabouts. I attended the Peninsula user group. That seemed the closest one. There were three. There was the East Bay up in Berkeley, Peninsula in Burlingame, and one in Silicon Valley. Bill attended all three. He was very active in all three. I remember him bringing his WAFA drives with his spectrums and demonstrating them. He had a number of machines. He had QLs. He got into that. He had this thing he called SyncLink, where any communication that he got, he logged. Apparently, he was a journalist or journal. He liked to journal. So if you called him on the phone, you expected to see that. Hey, Tim called me this time of day, and this is what we talked about. And he had this habit of printing it real small and then making copies and sending it out. For some of the people who get things, I'm leaving some stickers on stuff of his bill, what he's put on it. And you can see how small his handwriting is. He's a draftsman, apparently. I met him in the late 80s. He was already retired. He said he bought his house in the 60s. He paid it off. His mother was living with him. And so he didn't have really a need for anything. So he just had two hobbies, computers, and he loved boat racing. Not the jet boats. He'd go up down to Lake Havasu or the Rogue River in Grants Pass, Oregon, and watch where they would race the boats on the river there. So I was very active in that stuff. I kept in contact with him in the 90s a bit. Last I saw him was probably late 90s when I had the Sinclair meeting here. Anyhow, as you heard that we got contacted by his family. So Lewis and I went over. Lewis went on a Thursday. I then met him up on Friday.
Tim, how did they know to contact you?
He actually emailed the mailing list, I believe.
Okay.
Is that correct, David?
Yeah. The email, it was an email that was sent to the groups.io list. And that picture that I showed, was one of the came through, a day or two later.
So that was the first way that they contacted you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I have an additional part of the story there. The family member that was in charge of Bill's estate.
There's Lewis.
Hey guys.
Hey Lois.
Had he actually saw there was a lot of Timex Sinclair stuff, so he Googled for it. And of course the TS list showed up, and when he started looking, he saw some of the newsletters actually had the address of Bill's house. And so he kind of connected all the dots, and he was like, "Oh, this all makes sense." So that's that was how he subscribed and got onto the list to make the notice to everybody.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So Lewis and I went over, we sorted through the stuff. He grabbed what he wanted. I pretty much took everything else that was of value. There were some magazines, but my caddy's already scanned. There was another gentleman. So Lewis kind of pushed me to grab the Osborne 3 and 2 apricots. Not really interested in him. But this other gentleman who was, I think, Lewis, you posted on some Facebook group or something? Or some Discord?
On the Discord group, there's a Discord called Bay Area Vintage Computing.
Okay, well, this gentleman
yeah,
came down and they looks like they took whatever's left, put it in the big dumpster. Right. So he dumpster dived and grabbed up all the manuals for the apricots and some magazines and so on. And he contacted me, and he got the Osborne 3 and the apricots. And I was happy to let those go. So this went to someone who loves hardware. He drove all the way from Vallejo too. I didn't realize that's like 50 miles or more, but he was going to be in town anyhow. So he's dropped my house on his way to where he was going. As you all know, we sat down, a few of us sat down yesterday, went over pricing. So that's what was sent out today. I also, everyone who'd sent me emails saying what they wanted, I sent out an email saying, hey, here's what you're getting. Here's what the prices are. I'm waiting for confirmation, and then an address to then ship. And then I'll send out, how much it's going to cost to ship. What was really popular though was, of course, the 1500 cartridge and the cartridges. So we'll have to debate how we best resolve who gets that and what price. Do we do a silent auction or regular auction? There's one book by Joseph Carr that I went to. The first person who asked for it got it. And that's how some of the other stuff went. Whoever asked for it first got it. I basically went through all my emails and then put into a text document in chronological order who ordered what and when, and kind of went through that. So, and then what I sent out today was the updated list of what's still available. And I got one person that today that asked for a few things. So still got lots of software.
So
boxes of software.
Tim, you mentioned SyncLink and that this was Bill that did this, which, that's cool. It really closes the loop for me. Oh my God, Tim, you're going to be what you said is exactly what I found. Let me show you. The type is exceedingly small. This is not going to reproduce for anyone. But this was, this is 8.5 by 11. Okay. You see how teensy tiny this is, right? But I want to zoom in and hear what you were saying, Tim. Call from Rex Lundgren. Rex reported this, theatrical blah blah.
There's mine. Call
Look
from
at that.
me.
Call from Tim.
88. So that actually, I think in that time, I was in DC, and what's neat was that I grew up where everyone in my family was pretty much local. So calling long distance was unheard of. So I knew how expensive it was. So I'm like, hey, I'm in the Pentagon. I get free long distance. Let me call Bill.
Wow. Yeah, this is bizarre. So that, this is like
so would this be considered like a round robin letter? Is that what this is? Not like a newsletter? Or no? Because you wouldn't get this, Tim, and then send it out to someone else, right?
So I think what this was him documenting his meetings, his phone calls, his contacts, anything he got in the mail, and then he just sent it out.
Yeah.
Saying, to spread the news, so to speak.
I've never seen anything like this. Is this common?
He was the only one that did it.
Common.
So his family said that he liked to journal, and this was his way of doing it on the computer. I think he did this on one of either the PC or the Osborne 3. But I remember visiting his house, and I think he actually started taking notes and typing while I'm talking to him.
Oh my God.
And there's the CIO ESF ink strings floppy. So And he did this once every month or two. He would send this out.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen a bunch of these. I mean,
Yeah.
relatively speaking, it's really strange.
This makes me feel so lazy.
Weren't
So
there some
lazy.
cassettes too?
From
Yes.
Bill, I have no idea.
Now I saw there a bit about Dan Mosier guy. He picked up some of the collection from Mosier because some of the stuff in the collection did have Mosier's name on it.
Okay.
Also, let me give you an example. Here is a catalog, and he had these little post-it notes. I'm going to see if I can bring this in a little bit closer here. But you can see possibly how neat that handwriting is. He was a draftsman.
Yeah.
He had very neat handwriting. And so these little post-it notes were everywhere. On all of the QL microdrives, the post notes were just the right size of the microdrive. He would write all the contents in real small print.
I think he
So-
had an inventory system because everything had a number.
Yes,
Every single one of
I
these
think
post-it
his-
notes have an inventory number.
I think that one that was family member said something about how we discovered that this particular value is this particular year kind of thing. Had a very unique way of doing everything. And one thing I wanted to bring, I wanted to show for show and tell. Being a draftsman, it looks like he worked with Exitron at one point. Let's see here. What I have
Tim,
is
Exitron is who? I don't know who that is.
they made the stringy floppy.
Oh, okay.
Floppy, yeah.
This
Yeah.
is the Model 1. Tandy
A&J
Model 1.
microdrive.
But this actually is an original.
Oh, dude.
Isn't that insane?
The
And it
blueprints.
says here, let me find it's upside down. Supercharger Timex Sinclair 1000 expansion printed circuit board. So let me see if I can get a little bit better idea. You guys can see that or not. There's a glare there. And then
Like the PCB diagrams and the art.
yes,
Looks like the layer, looks like that's the top layer, and then maybe he's underneath it's got the bottom layer, because it looks like a double-sided board.
this one's labeled. It's labeled Exitron Timex Sinclair expansion unit. I'm gonna pull back a bit and see if you can at least get an idea.
Yeah. Looks like some RAM chips across the top.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So,
By the way, credit to Tim on saving that stack of things because I had put it on the trash pile. So I looked at a couple of them and I didn't recognize what they were.
Extratron was before A&J. A&J took over.
Right,
So
right. Well,
these-
AJ was spun off of Exitron. It was
So-
Jim, whose last name escapes me.
these will go to whoever wants them for archiving. So I'm assuming someone who's got a hardware bent can have these. So, but interesting is that Exitron did spin off to A&J, and there's a company called BSR that also worked with A&J because the WAFA drive from the UK is using an Exitron, but it is from BSR labeling.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you can hear in the background, but I got people here. So, so I have the drives are labeled Exitron, A&J, and also BSR for the WAFA drives. So I think most of them are already been sold. I think there's 1,000 WAFA drives, not WAFA drive. There's still one WAFA drive and one A&J microdrive. And all of them have media, so everyone who order one will get at least about 4 or 5 or maybe more of the media. So
I need those, because they're special, they're not the older Exatron tapes, they're like a newer version of them.
So there's
give me I can get them 1 second.
yeah. So
Yeah, because I
Carl,
know I've seen some of the Exatron stringy floppies on eBay, but they're
Yeah.
like the original version. They won't fit into the like the A&J drives. It's a newer version of the stringy floppy.
do you recall what's different, Carl?
I think they're a little thicker and maybe skinnier, not as wide. They're a little skinnier.
Okay.
But they won't
This
fit
one-
'cause Oh,
hang on, Tim.
This one is the one for the Exitron, and the ones that were for the Timex. This one marked A and J actually fits the Wafa drive, I believe.
Yeah.
So I've
it
tested
looks
them.
like the ones that go to the, well, the A and J's. I think even the 2000 or the one and the 1000, I think they use the same drive mechanism. But
think
see
that's-
that, see that tape
that's
is
this
different.
guy.
Yeah, that tape is different. I don't think that goes into the A and J 2000. I think the
The
one on
black
your,
one does.
the black one goes into the A and J 2000. That may go into the A and J 1000, maybe.
I'll have to check. So I'll before I send these off, I'll definitely confirm what goes where.
Yeah.
Because the A and J 2000, the only thing I could tell differently was the fact that it's the same physical drive, it's just the controller is different. The controller allows for 2 drives and has a
Right.
pass-through printer.
Because I actually have a 2000 ANJ. I just didn't have any media. And I think it has a door on it. I think it's got a, it's got a little
A
dust
little
cover
trap
door.
door like a cassette deck.
Right. And I think the
Okay, so-
1000 doesn't. The 1000 uses the older mech, which I think is the other tape you have there.
So I know that. So I don't think I had. So all right, that's going to be interesting because things were kind of separated, and so I have the 2000 controller, but it wasn't with anything. I just found some loose random Exitron drives, so I figured they went together. That any Exitron would fit to the 2000 controller. So that's kind of what I'm doing. Carl, I think you're the one who got a couple of those, so we can talk offline and make sure you're getting what you want.
No, the black ones look familiar to me. Those are the ones that I'm pretty sure go to the 2000 one. Yeah. Those are the
Right.
ones that go. The other one
Right.
looks like the original Exitron stringy floppies. And I think
Right,
that goes
but
to the 1000. Okay.
The controller was totally separate from everything
Right.
else.
Right.
So I don't know if I have the 2000 drive that you're looking for. Other than there is some bits and pieces leftover parts of Wafa drives. So again, we can talk offline to make sure you're getting what you think you're getting.
I thought there was one that was in the box that had the blue, uh, the blue foam in there. I think that's
So-
how they came from A&J. They were in that that box.
The 2 that are boxed are the 1000 models,
Okay.
complete in a box with all foam and everything. The
Right.
2000 model was the control was totally loose, and there was some spare Exitron drives. The Wafa drives are obvious because they're totally case A Wafa drive. So I'll have to go relook at that stuff, and because I think you might be getting the 2000 controller, but a 1000 drive, the earlier
Okay.
drive.
Well,
So-
I think they all plug up the same. It's just the controller that was the main difference. And you just had to make sure that tapes you got matched the drive.
Right, yeah, and that's what I'm doing is to make sure that
Yeah.
whatever I'm testing these with the drives.
Well,
So-
luckily, like I said, I have a 2000. I got it on eBay, I don't know, a couple of years ago, but I don't have any tapes for it. And I know I played with those because Art, I think, must have, got some. And I think I actually used the 2000 one when I was, making that diagnostic cartridge. That's how I think I
So-
saved.
I may have some spare tapes. Willie might have the rest.
Okay.
Carl, you need some of these.
Yeah, that looks like the one that goes into the 2000 drive. The 1000 drive, I think the mech in that one is different.
Okay.
It has I think it uses the original tapes, the other tape.
So whatever drive I'm sending you, I will also send some. See, it says here to Carl. So I will send you some of those. We have a number of them. I'm thinking there's probably going to be about 5 per everyone who's getting one of those drives. 5 media. So maybe a little bit more. I'll have to go through and sort we'll see what's going on. So I will definitely get you a couple of these to do. So my
Yeah,
to-do
just
list.
double check and,
Yep.
they won't fit into each other. So, it'll be obvious.
There are some spare drives loose, and so we can talk. I'll talk another, as I get to the bottom of the what's left over, I'll probably advertise more. There were a couple things I didn't put on the list. One I forgot about was the Timeworks. Was it that the workstation, the plastic workstation thing?
Yeah.
So it's pretty good size, and there were some bits and pieces. There is an Exitron TS1000 controller board, just a single board there, no parts, no nothing. So that may be just like, hey, whoever wants it gets it kind of thing. You know, that's down. I'm just doing the major stuff first. So, and I've got a bunch of people. I've got boxes. I've got things starting to box up, and so I believe, David, you said Pirate Ship is a good company to go with for cheaper shipping.
Yep. Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll look into them. Try
Yeah.
and ship this as cheaply as possible.
Yeah.
Someone did buy a bunch of the ZX81 software. That a lot of that stuff's going in with us. So we still have the. Actually, let me get one thing. I think.
Oh, Dave, maybe you could get whatever he doesn't sell, because I know you're selling software
Right.
on your site, but
Right.
it may
What-
sit around for a while.
What I need is some more basement ballast.
All right, this is. I think I'm not sure I showed anyone, but this is unique. I think I took the picture. This is
Yeah.
a 1000 with a keyboard, but it's also this keyboard,
Yeah.
which I think both of these just apply over the regular keyboard.
Mhm.
So when you see in the list, hey, 1000 with keyboard, that's this guy here.
And
So
and the
you like
Innovision
these extra
keyboard, the one
keyboards.
up above, Innovation rather, those are slightly domed. Those little,
Yes,
yeah, that's crazy.
You
Yeah,
feel it.
there were a lot of keyboards, I think, like that just gave you a little bit of a space to give a
Will
little bit
give
of a
you a
tactile.
This one,
It give you a tactile feel,
tactile.
yeah.
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 Yeah, I have that one. That's one I've loaned to Adam. It's just a rubber.
Yep.
Is
What do you
it
call it?
rubber or is
Oh.
it hard plastic?
It's just a
Rubber.
rubber that presses down.
Oh
It's
yeah,
rubber.
this
The whole-
guy, this feels like a Spectrum keyboard.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That kind of rubber.
Okay.
This just feels like a bubble, like a microwave.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why this one's attached here, I have no idea. It's kind of glued on, sort of, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a
Try taking
self-adhesive.
it off.
Yeah.
Right. But normally it just fits over the regular. So why there's two on this guy, I don't know. So when you see the ZX80, the 1000 with keyboard, that's this guy. So if someone's interested, that's what you're looking at. So 'cause that
Very
was just a
cool.
little different.
I
Yeah,
do
you
have a
can
comment to
actually-
make about that keyboard too, that keyboard overlay that's on there, Tim. The one that's actually on the keyboard. I typed in a program on it, kind of lengthy program, and it's so much better. You wouldn't think it would make a big difference, but it makes a huge difference compared to the regular keyboard.
Mhm.
I like it quite a bit.
See, for me, I learned on the regular keyboard, don't touch type, you stroke it. then when you feel the
If you say
depression.
so.
Yeah, okay. All right.
You could
That
It
was
wants
just,
to feel appreciated.
you could just
low-hanging
barely
fruit
touch
there,
the-
Adam. Yeah.
Dear Lord.
Yeah, you could barely touch the 1000 keyboard and it would register it. So I mean, you really didn't have to push like hard, you know.
Yeah, I would just actually run over it so I could feel the depression.
Right.
And, so it was just a technique I had, and you had to memorize after a while what key was what, because
Yeah, you do have to.
yeah, and so,
Yeah.
but after
Well,
you did that a
hands-
while, you kind of got used to
So
it.
the RAM pack wobble wouldn't destroy my hour's work, you know.
For I found out duct tape for the Rampack wobble. You take the 1000, you duct tape it to a piece of board, you duct tape the memory, and you're good.
I'll give you a segue, Tim. You plug in the 2040 printer and then the RAM pack, and it's all good.
I still had it duct taped, so that way I could pick it up and move it. It was fine. I also learned that I did learn with the ZX81, especially this guy, they don't work if you put them on shag carpet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because all the ventilation is here, and we have shag carpet. I'm like, why this thing keeps crashing on me? Oh,
Well,
Yeah,
you also learn over time how hot the E key would be before you got in trouble,
Oh, yeah.
because that's where the
That's where the
heat sink was.
heat sink is. Yeah. Yeah.
all right. So I think that's all I want to talk about. I don't know if we want to talk about the cartridges in the auction. I sent you in the email. One cartridge will be going to the museum in Portugal. So that means there's the cartridge adapter and 2 cartridges left.
Yeah.
And everyone wanted the States and Capital for some reason. I don't know why. That was what everyone wanted.
Very bizarre.
Hmm.
Very bizarre.
I think
Quick question. Where is this
Did-
list
did-
at? Because I haven't seen it. Is it on the IO list?
Yeah.
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 Oh, okay.
If you check my last email, you'll see attachments as text files.
Okay.
Tim, did you talk about the crazy box with the what seems to be like 60 copies of the cassette software?
Oh, that long one. Well, no, it was so one box had one copy of a bunch of everything. And then there was another box that had multiple copies. They had I think there were like 13 copies of something, 5 or 8 or 9 copies of Fun Golf and Analyzer, and all the good stuff like ViewCalc and View3 had like 1 or 2 copies. But all of them are factory sealed. So
wow.
when you're buying the 2068 software, it's going to be factory sealed in not just the cassette, but in the little box that it came in. I'm guessing he must have gone somewhere and found them on closeout somewhere. I have no idea where he got them. Some of the 1000 software was still shrink wrapped. So, and I need to ping whoever's buying that ZX81 software. There's 2 of them on there, at least 1 actually. That the ZX81stuff.org website, it's a missing one. So that person's gonna have to then scan it or digitize it and get it online.
Okay.
So it's called Popstar. No one knows where that one's out. So it's a few missing things there.
I don't understand. What is called Popstar?
Bill had a bunch of ZX81 software, all much imported, and there's one called Popstar. I'm like, I never heard this one. So I went and looked at the ZX81stuff.org, whatever the website was, Googled it, searched it, and Popstar was one of the ones that was shown as missing. That they know of, but no one has a copy of it. And that's going to who's our
dumper?
This guy. So he's getting whoever the floppy whatever guy, he's getting that. So
Okay.
Oh, the floppy, yeah, the
YouTuber,
web,
I think.
the web thing he does, yeah.
Yep.
Well, hopefully he archives it. Well, like you said, I guess that's why he's getting it.
Yep. And someone's getting a bunch of individual box units. I'm gonna have to send those individually. The 1000 box, the QL box, the 2068 box. I'll wrap them, of course, but I'm not gonna put them all in one big box. I'm gonna individually ship them out. So luckily my wife had a bunch of old boxes running around, so I'm using those to get everything out. So
Hey, Louis, since you're here, can we talk about Unixville and the site that you used to have up a long time ago?
Oh, that is a very old story. I don't remember how long ago. It must have been 98
ish years, I think.
It's definitely 20 years, probably a few more. Unixville was an actual server that we ran. Some friends and I, we were early adopters of Unix, at least early in our minds of Linux. And so as the internet became a thing, we started deploying websites and doing our own websites and so forth. One of the 2 things came out of that that are related to Timex Sinclair. One was the original list was run as a listserv, or whatever the software we used at the time.
Postfix,
I don't remember. I want to say Postfix, but I think that's the
that's an SMTP server.
Yeah, that's the actual SMTP software.
Does
Anyways,
Mailman
there was a
go back
mailing
that
list, kind of like listserv, but it was a little more modern. And that was the original Timex Sinclair 2068 list. And I also had the website with the 2068 stuff. If you go to archive.com or org or whatever it's called, you can actually find old copies of the site. And it was a very rudimentary, rudimentary nowadays, site with pictures of what I had for the collection, and I kept it very specific to the 2068, due to that's where my interests were. So yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm so glad you're able to join us, because when I started working on this stuff a number of years ago, your site was one of the like 3 places in archive.org that had any kind of information, right? It was you and Jack Boatwright, and I think one other website. I can't remember what it was, but I relied heavily on what you had as my sort of starting point.
Beautiful. Thank you. I'm glad you continued it. As these things happen, right? Life gets busy, and hobbies take a bit of a back seat sometimes. So
yeah.
I'm glad others stepped up, and I'm glad the list survived, because we used to host it on Unixville, which was a single Linux box that we were literally running under somebody's desk at one of our startups. We moved startups, we took the box with us, we ran it somewhere else, we would bring it up, bring it down. And eventually I moved out to the Bay Area. This was when I was in Miami, Florida, when I started these. And I knew I wasn't going to have the time to do it properly, so I switched over to the Yahoo lists.
Okay.
And so that ran for, I want to say like 15, 16 years, until Yahoo shut all of that down.
Yeah,
And
a bunch of the folks here were on the Yahoo list. Actually, Mark said that he was on your Unixville list.
Old school.
Old school.
Yes, I do remember it, actually. So by the way, Dave, was that Yannick site? The other site I remember from back in the day was that was that Yannick, the Polish site?
Yeah, that was one of them. Guy. But there was another American that had put up a site. I just don't remember what it is off the top of my head. But yeah, Louis, you had a little bit of detail on your site, about how it was that you came into being a 2068 person, and it was a nice story to read, and
it was a very cute story. I'll tell it again if
thank you.
I was just going to ask. I'm like, don't keep me in suspense,
So my family's originally from Argentina, and I was born here in the States, but we moved back for a brief spell in the 80s. And of course I was going to this middle school equivalent over there. First year, second year, I forget exactly what it was. And the story goes, we didn't have a lot of resources. I didn't have a computer yet. But I knew I desperately wanted to work with computers, play with computers. I wanted to program. I was that kid that had the basic book, and I would actually write my programs out on paper, expecting the day that I would be able to type on a real computer. One of my teachers, math teacher, and I don't remember her name, had recently graduated from university with a computer science degree. And of course, in the 80s, back then, you learned all the logic and everything in abstract. You didn't have a lot of practical knowledge. And so this would have been 85, 86. And as many of you know, when Timex Sinclair exited the business, one of the things they did is they got rid of their inventory and they dumped it in Argentina. So you could find Timex Sinclair 2068s for very cheap. And so this lady had, she must have been in her 20s, I'm gonna guess. She had bought one of these, and she was using it to learn how to program on a real machine. And she was also teaching math at the same time. And long story short, she brought this thing and she showed it to us, and I was mesmerized, of course. And eventually, she actually lent it to me. It says, "Here, take it. You use it for the week. Good luck. Don't break it." And I took it to my parents' house. We didn't have a compatible TV. I went to my aunt's house. They did have a TV. So literally, putting the TS 2068 on top of the TV, and I'm typing my program, and I'm showing my aunt and uncle how to do all this stuff. And my uncle was like, "Oh my God, this kid's gonna blow up the TV," and all kinds of fun stories like that. But yeah, that was the story of the first computer I got my hands on and did some code on. It's been a long time, and don't ever, what's the saying? Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
That's right.
One of the things that we had were lots of little comic magazines at the time, corner magazine. So you'd have your little comic strip story. It was a little pamphlet type thing. And at the end, there was a lot of programs, and they were mostly coded for the ZX. One of those, which was multi-page, was an adaptation of Moon Patrol for the ZX, and I adapted it to work on the Timex Sinclair 2068. So Of course, that's all lost to the ages. I don't know where it is, and I'll keep looking for the program listing. At some point, I'm sure it'll show up, and I'll have to amend my story.
It's probably on that list of software that Tim saw that had
yes,
yeah,
missing in action.
So Louis, I don't know if you know this, but there are these two guys in Argentina, Ricardo and Gustavo, who have, Ricardo was emailing me like every 6 months for a couple of years now, saying, has anybody come up with a disk drive system or whatever? And then COVID hit, and he had time on his hands, and so he worked it out. And then Gustavo, who, like you, I think Gustavo's a little bit older, because he talks about getting his 2068 when he finished high school. And Gustavo, like, he knows the 2068 ROM inside and out. He disassembled the ROM for the FDD 3 disk drive system, and then back in 85 he started writing his own DOS, his own operating system, and that is what is actually being implemented on this device that Ricardo designed, and Gustavo's written the XROM extensions for, and we are assembling literally right now.
That's awesome.
And as Americans, we didn't know jack about Argentina, right? I mean, we kind of got some rumors that that stuff had been dumped there, right? But we didn't know to what extent it was, how popular it was there, and we certainly didn't know what was going on in Portugal either, very much. So the Argentina connection continues.
So David, you just said you heard some rumors. Did you know about these rumors in the 80s, or was this in the days of the internet when you heard about them?
Well, I was out of the Timex community by 85 or something, but having looked at, having scanned a great many newsletters,
right.
and having read a great many articles, there were the folks who were still there knew a little bit about Argentina, and knew that there was something going on there, right? That somehow these folks got.
There's this excellent Moon Patrol system. That's what
I know. Louis needs to just recreate that from memory.
I remember some of the maybe catalogs back then that were mentioning, because we knew Timex Portugal kind of was going on and doing their own thing, right? They didn't shut down. And so, but this is the early 80s, right? I mean, we're going to order something from Portugal, how would you do, how would you do that? How much would it cost? So, I mean, it was just kind of a, not like today where it would be pretty trivial to order something from there now. But back then it was like, you're not going to, you might never see your money again. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those things. And, but I do remember that I didn't know Timex dumped the US inventory there. But I know that they had continued on, and, obviously we're working on their own machine, which, they came out with the Timex Computer 2068. And that's kind of where it was weird that, they didn't heed Timex America, right? Where they shut down operations, but here's Portugal kind of doing their own thing with it. They didn't shut down. And I was like, and I think Dave, you mentioned or somebody's got the documents, right? That they were still talking to Timex in the US. Portugal was, after they had already exited business. So I mean, they knew they were doing this down there, but I guess they were, they just wanted to wash their hands clean of the US market and not have anything to do with it here, right? Not have to have any employees here. And I just find it interesting that Portugal decided to keep on going, but they were building the machines there. Even the American machines, right? They were, even the 1000s they were building there, right? So I guess whoever the management or all those employees, they decided to keep on because obviously Portugal was not a third world country, but I mean, it wasn't the US, right? So they probably had a bigger market for a cheap computer like that.
Right.
Then, so I think that's probably why
I
they
think
decided to stay.
One part of it that, if they're going to shut down, they had to shut everything down in the US at least. Probably some sort of legal things of.
Yeah, I was wondering if anybody had the stories about how did the licensing work, because it sounds like a subsidiaries or licensing would kind of dictate how you can shut down operations in one country and continue them in another.
Well,
I would guess the Sinclair Research probably like farmed out the designs or something and said, okay, here, take it and now do whatever you want with it, and that would give you the autonomy to be able to do what Portugal continued. But
well,
random
we
guess.
have at least 2, if not 3, Portuguese folks on the meeting tonight.
Sweet.
I know it's crazy, and it's for some of them. I mean, like for Bruno, are you originally from Portugal? I think you said you might have been. But Johnny
first
Red,
generation. I moved
yeah.
here when I was 18.
But Bruno, you're in California, so it's a sensible hour for you. for Johnny Red, he's in Portugal and it's an insane hour. What time is it there, Johnny?
Hello.
What?
2 a.m.
Oh my god.
Like a quarter to 3 a.m.
Oh my god, dude.
That's just hackers hours. Come on.
Well, and he is you are, I think that fits for you.
Well, I can say once the bean counters decided to liquidate, they picked a time frame where it was tax advantage to them, and they had to adhere to that in order to claim the loss.
Oh, yeah, sure, that makes sense. But Portugal did keep going, and as a matter of fact, based on stuff that I've seen, they were interested in trying to bring back the 1500 to the US, and they were trying to work with Timex and trying to get it FCC to get the changes FCC certified, and they continued to iterate the 1500, like making a smaller lower cost version of its motherboard. And we know that they did they did their own version of the 2068. I learned this week that the pinout on the cartridge connector in the Portuguese 2068 is slightly different from the American, and that not just the SCLD is different, but there's some other sort of internal differences on the motherboard that are significant enough to make not that we couldn't use it, because people did import the Portuguese 2068s and use them, but just that there was enough minor differences.
The one big thing with the cartridge port is I think there's a ROM CS, right, that comes out of the Portuguese one, and it doesn't come out on the 2068. That's why you have to do the out 244,3 to get any of those Spectrum ROMs to work, whereas they worked automatically in the Portuguese one because I guess it just turned off the internal ROM and you booted up on the one that was in the cartridge.
Yeah, exactly, Carl. And that was one of the things that was, that I learned.
And it's funny too, because I watched some of your, the first half of it was in Portuguese, so we couldn't really, the one you were doing over there where they were reverse engineering the SCLD, and, they reverse engineered the PAL one, right? Which was, I won't say reverse engineer because obviously Timex made that one, but they obviously kind of reverse engineered it from the NTSC one, the one that we have in the US, right? Because that's where their basis was for the Portuguese machine was our NTSC, SCLD chip. Right. They made the PAL version, and here we are reverse engineering the PAL version, and now even going further, I guess, maybe in reverse engineering that to make an NTSC version for the TS 26, the Timex Sinclair 2068, because it's kind of a round robin,
Well, so Carl, here's a curious thing, and I'll Joao from the Load CX Museum tells this better than I do, but when Timex shut down, there was one guy who was working as a consultant to Timex in Portugal, and somebody in Timex Middlebury basically said, "Here's boxes of documents, take them away." Okay, and these are the documents. These are some of the documents that Joelle and I looked at in the little series of videos about the 1500. And in looking at those documents, we saw that there were, for instance, there was the original form that you would fill out in order to send a telex, right? And it was the original that somebody had filled out in Middlebury, and so the only way that could have gotten to Portugal was for somebody to put all this stuff in a box and say, take it away from here.
Wasn't that in one of the meetings?
This was in Joao and I did a couple of videos looking at documentation and circuit boards and parts of the 1500.
Yeah, because I remember seeing one of the telexes.
Exactly. We saw there was a bunch of telexes. Yeah. But then when we came across that, original ones, like, wow, that's really bizarre, because clearly this was a piece of paper that somebody wrote on in Middlebury.
Right.
So, I'm willing to bet that Portugal had, had the design for the 2068 SCLD, because Carl, actually, in the second to the last, or the last episode we did, we came across the logic diagram for the 1500s SCLD. It was really cool to see that.
Yeah, like I said, I had the one that Art got from Timex. Right.
Yes.
But it's a big blueprint.
Yeah.
It was a huge blueprint, just like what kind of Tim was showing with those, it's a huge piece of paper.
Yeah. Johnny,
do they have those?
Maybe
over there.
We don't know yet. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Because I don't know how he reverse engineered that. I know he took a couple of years to do it, but
Alvaro.
Yeah.
I know.
Go ahead.
For documentation I have read. Portugal was working on revision 2 of the board of the 2068, but it was not. It was not going to be all of European. It was going to go to export also to the US.
Well, because Portugal still used NCR, right, to manufacture the SCLDs, even theirs. So it'd be, I'm sure, I would think that somebody there has the blueprints of the SCLD logic diagrams, even the NTSC one that we used in our machines here in the US.
Well, I have not seen one. I have seen schematics for the 2068 European one, but not the SCLD. If we had those, it would be very easy to replicate it.
I just remember seeing, confidential, was stamped on this thing, and I kind of remember Art saying, or I had maybe signed an NDA agreement or something, because obviously you didn't want to get that information out. I don't know how you would replicate it back in the 80s. They didn't have like FPGAs and CLPDs that they do now, but I do remember seeing that. I had that document. That's how I kind of used it as a template to build my diagnostic program, because I knew, what I would do, what it was doing inside the SCLD chip, right? And it's just a shame that nobody these years later has found that document. But it was a confidential Timex, but we've seen other confidential Timex documents that we have found. So, it's just, I don't know. Well, we haven't found that one. That's, I mean, the rest of the 2068 is pretty mundane. Realistically, it's just a Z80 and some RAM chips, and there's no other glue logic, right? That's really so why can't we find that blueprint that has the schematics of the SLD for the US one?
I'm going to use that as a segue to, well, first, Mark wanted to know how many, 2068s, 2048s were sold in Portugal. Johnny or Hugo, do you guys have an idea?
No one have an idea.
Okay.
Many were how to say, many were not even
accounted for.
Accounted because they were left the factory without even they knowing.
Oh, they fell off the truck?
Yeah.
Quite a bit, yeah. Guys, apology for not having my camera on, but contrary to John, I'm at my bed. So apologies for that. Nonetheless, I'm still joining.
Yeah, it's insane. It's the insane time for you guys. 2 or 3 in the morning, right?
Almost 3 a.m.
Oh dear Lord.
3 a.m. right now.
I appreciate your perseverance and showing up. This is awesome. All right, so segue to documents that have been found. More than a year ago, I don't remember exactly when we had Lon Hildreth on, but we had Lon on one of our Zoom meetings, and when I first reached out to Lon, he told me that when Timex shut down, he took all his stuff and just put it in a box and taped it shut, and that he had not opened it since then, right? And he opened it prior to our meeting and sort of brought it out and spread it out around him during the meeting. And of course, behind him is this sort of tantalizing pile of what we used to call green bar, the really wide printer paper that had green bars on it. And that was tantalizing because that was something that came from Timex, and who knows what was on it. And Lon said, oh, I've got my notebook as well, and some other documents. And a few weeks ago, I talked to Lon and asked him if I could borrow his stuff, right? And scan it and then send it back. And he agreed. And so he sent me this box, and it came on a Wednesday, and I had other plans, but I opened the box and I looked in, and I started seeing some documents, and I'm like, I got so excited about the documents that I took photos of some pages with my phone, and I had to send them off to the list because I knew people like Carl and others would just their heads would explode. So right after that, I ran upstairs and did a whole bunch of scanning and sent it off.
Like, for instance, the 2060 expansion box
the
cover?
2060 expansion document, and the document about the bank switching chip that was going to be part of the 2068 2060 rather, bus expansion unit. And there were all these other interesting things in there that gave some insight into what it was like to work at Timex, on this project after this thing had shipped, and they were like, they knew that there were bugs, they wanted to fix those bugs. So like there's this memo from Carol Corcoran about enhancements and bug fixes, which I've scanned. These things are all up on archive.org. But what I want to show you is this notebook that I scanned. Here we go. And so this is Lon's notebook, and Lon's job at Timex, his main job was to work on porting CPM to the 2068. And so there's questions of, is it going to be done with a microdrive, or we're going to have a floppy disk drive, whatever. So let me make this go away, and I just want to sort of just breeze through it a little bit. but you will see in here, and I'll put the, like I said, this is on archive.org, so you can go see this and look at it for yourself, and I'll make sure that the link is in the notes and stuff. But this is absolutely fascinating because you can see Lon's learning process about how the 2068 works, how the Sinclair interface 1 works, and then the fact there's just all this cool little bits about setting up the system configuration table. I mean, cool if you're a nerd about how the inner workings of the 2068 happen. So there's him documenting various bits about like the initialization for if you stick a if you have a ROS cartridge and you put it in your 2068, what happens. I'm going to skip ahead a bit. So here's a thing that I want to show you, right? They were talking about, we know that the 2068 has 24K of ROM. It has a 16K main ROM and an 8K extension ROM, but they knew that that wasn't big enough. So there was some discussion about, having a 32K ROM, and would it be one ROM? Would it be two 16K ROMs? This is backed up by some other memos that Carol Corcoran is on. All of this just absolutely astounding detail about how this crazy system works. Anyway, that's now available to you. And as I was saying with the green bar, he also sent me a ton of that stuff too. And I got a big overhead scanner in order to scan that stuff.
So the green bar, is it program listings?
It is. It's source code.
So I wonder if they were doing that on a deck and then
yep,
transferring it over. Yep.
Yep, they had a VAX. And as a matter of fact, towards the back here is, let me see if I can find it. This is, I think that these are debugger commands for something that either was on the VAX or it was the Zilog development system that they had. However, if you've ever experienced VMS on a VAX.
I used to be a VMS operator. It was one of my first jobs.
Does this look familiar to you, Mark?
The run part does. You know what, in Pascal, so they wrote in like Pascal? Really?
Yeah, they used a lot of Pascal. Yeah. As a matter of fact, one of these program listings is a Pascal program. Yep.
Yeah, that kind of looks like VMS.
Yeah.
Gotta remember, VMS looks like old school DOS.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough difference.
Ish.
$sign gives it
the
away.
$sign.
Yep.
Remember, DOS looks like CPM, and CPM looks like older stuff still.
Well,
so
DOS
everything looks the same.
yeah. So, I have more to do.
Before I forget, and we got some Portugal people on here.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of, does anybody? Because I think the cases for the 2068, the 2048, all these machines, I think they were molded in maybe Taiwan, right? I don't know, but I don't think they were molded in Portugal. But you just throwing that out there. Does anybody know? Do we have the original molds maybe for those, or anything like that for the actual cases?
Cases used in Portugal were molded in Portugal. They were made in Portugal. The molds are unfortunately lost.
Okay.
It's like 40 years ago.
Right.
Probably recycled the material.
Probably.
So Johnny was there was some kind of injection molding facility that Timex Portugal either had or used.
No, it was a company.
Okay.
João Diogo Ramos know the name of the company. I don't recall it.
Okay.
You know, I'm sure they probably used a mold. I guess, you know, at least we have the machine, so we could probably reverse mold them. But it's just harder work, you know, more work to actually get it. You know, I
A
don't know how
clean
they did.
design. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how they did the micro drives because I know they obviously you can buy new shells. And of course the Sinclair, you know, the rubber key Spectrums, you can buy new cases for that too. So yeah, I don't know, but it just that kind of seems like the next step, right? Is we need to see if we can get the 2068 case, you know, so we can actually make new ones of those because all of them out there now are 40 years old.
Carl, isn't there a process that you can do something similar? I mean, it's not injection molded, but where you can make a silicone mold, and I don't recall if it's a urethane process or if it's an epoxy process.
They do that for old car taillight lenses.
What do they do?
They use silicone to start with.
Okay, but what do they actually make the lens out of?
Yeah. Well, they use some form of mold, liquid plastic. I don't remember what it is right now, but I know they use that process of making silicone molds to do old taillight lenses.
Okay. Okay.
And they can get clear or color, you know, in the plastic.
And I think I've seen something too from Creality or one of the it's a laser 3D scanner, right? You can you know put something on the table and you got to wave this thing over it, you know, 20 times and it'll make a 3D model of whatever you scan. So I mean that's maybe a possibility too. Those things aren't that expensive. I mean, I don't know the quality of it, but it's kind of a neat process. So they, you know, that's how they kind of and I think they do more some automotive stuff with that too. So you can scan like a grill of a truck or a car, and so you get a 3D model of it right in your computer. And so now you can do, you know, you can make your own grill for it or things like that. And it's you know, it uses lasers and you just move this thing back and forth, and it, you know, enough times, and it's got enough detail, right, to make a 3D model of it.
Cool. And Mark reminded me that one of the things I sent out to the list yesterday, were Lon saved a lot of stuff. He saved his receipts. He saved his you know, expense report stuff, right? And from November 3rd to the 5th, I think it was, in 1983, he went out to Digital Research in California to learn about CPM. 40 years ago, a couple days ago.
Which is completely crazy, by the way.
Isn't that insane? Yeah. So that was awesome. Yeah, those are my updates for you.
So I have a quick question about the molding. So my buddy over at Shapeways, that he designs like all these miniature model trains and stuff, and he's a master like at 3D printing. So what would you guys want 3D printed? So would it be the cases to the 2068s and then the new expansion unit? And do we have the dimensions for the vaporware expansion unit?
Well, we do have the dimensions, but you know, as we've kind of discussed, I don't know that we want to like recreate the exact thing, but we need to, you know, and I know that Ryan sent out a document earlier today or yesterday or about our discussion of it. So, I mean, I know that we would want to have a 2068 case. For sure, right? I mean, I think that would be valuable, right? If we could make a run of 2068 cases, you know, and they'll work for both the Portuguese and the USA ones. And then we could even, once we got that done, we could actually maybe even chop the cartridge port off and make you know, the 2048 ones. Because it's basically the same thing. It's just they cut the cartridge port off. And so it's short, you know, it's not as wide. It's just basically the width of the keyboard. but it's the same basic.
Well, Timex of Portugal modified case for the Terminal 3000. Have you seen it?
Oh yeah, that's right. They put a keypad
Um,
where the
a keypad.
numeric keypad where the cartridge slot was.
Don't forget that Gary or Grimes, he had pictures of a keyboard in the cartridge port. It was like going to be an option or something like
Yep.
that. You would replace the. So I mean, I guess they were thinking about that. You know, even back when Timex USA was still kicking.
Yeah, and it was even labeled with CPM. Remember when we asked Gary, he's like, you know, what is the CPM? He's like, I don't know. It just was, you know, part of the design.
Probably had, yeah, CPM specific keys. Yeah, obviously, yeah.
So Carl, what would you do with 2068 cases if you don't have, you know, those really bizarrely shaped keyboards?
Bizarrely shaped what?
Keyboards. The keyboard modules really funky shaped.
Well, you know, here's the thing. We could maybe design a 2068 case that used your keyboard.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just kind of, we just got to kick the ball, you know, get the ball rolling, that somebody can maybe do stuff like that. Because I mean, if he's doing little model miniatures, you know, and then, like I said, that laser scanner, I think that's kind of how they do some of that stuff, right? They've got a little model, you know, a little physical injected molded figurine or something like that, and then they'll scan it with that 3D scanner, and now you've got it computerized, and they can use those resin 3D printers, right? And that's how they, I think they kind of get those, you know.
That's exactly the way like Shapeways printers are. They're these huge industrial printers, and they're resin printers.
Right. So, you know, resin would be, I don't know if we want to make it out of resin, but it might be okay. I don't know. I don't
And I don't know that stuff. But here's the thing: I'll send them a whole bunch of the pictures and say, hey, listen, how much work would this be, and how much do you think it would cost?
Well, that'd be helpful, Mark. At least get the conversation started, like Carl was saying.
Yeah. His name is Mitchell.
Okay.
It's Mitchell at shapeways.com. So you guys could you could bug him too. He's a great guy, though. He's a great guy. This is right up his alley, by the way.
Okay. Well, you know, the
Not
2060.
sure if you can see the.
Oh no! Let me spotlight you.
Not sure if you can see this. Is exactly the same size of a 2068.
I can see it.
Wow! Look at that.
Let's just do that.
This is
Let's do
not
that.
this is not a template. This is a plastic, and this is all the same case. Not sure if.
So, what model is that?
This is the Terminal 3000.
Okay, gotcha.
This is basically a computer, but it's used as a terminal for the FTD 3000.
Gotcha.
To use CPM.
Gotcha.
Timex of Portugal also went to CPM. So I have this.
Nice. Very cool.
8-inch disc with CPM. Still sealed. There were several. Also, not sure if João also mentioned in the 1500 series of Timex Connection, but Portugal also made the user manual in English for the US for the 1500. The difference is if you open the manual, the Portuguese version doesn't have doesn't have this page about the
warranty.
The club, the Timex Computer Club.
Oh, right.
And it's printed in Portugal in here, and the American one. But again, you can, if a mold is made, you can also change it to every keys you want. You don't have to use the original opening for it.
It's just that wouldn't work, you know, obviously for the 2068 because the cartridge port's gone, right? Because that doesn't open up, right? Where that, 'cause
No,
those
no, no,
key-
no.
yeah, those keys are
This
pretty thick.
this is all of the same frame.
Right.
But I think that might be good for, say, a recreated thing where you've got nice keyboard and the cartridge port could probably be put onto some sort of on the back or some sort of add-on.
Yep.
Well, with mass storage, is the cartridge port even a desired option for an expanded or a follow-on 2068?
Like a
I don't
physical
know.
Well, if
cartridge
it's
port. Yeah.
The upcoming
it's-
computer made by Timex of Portugal was using the same case with the same keyboard, but it had the cartridge ports. But the prototype we have doesn't have an opening for the cartridge, so we don't know where it would sit in the machine.
Bear in mind that for a recreation, you don't have to use the keypad, right? So you can make the mold in such a way that you put a cutoff or a cutout in that zone. And if you want to use it for a recreation of this kind of computer, the Terminal 3000, then you keep the plastic off and you put the keypad in. Otherwise, you just leave the space for the cartridge slot, for example.
It's
Or
not wide
for your
enough
pile
for
of
the same kind
Post-its.
of cartridge.
Sucks. Okay.
The cartridge is wider than keypad.
Oh.
Let me get one.
But to Jeff's question, if all the cartridge images are available, do you need a physical cartridge slot anymore?
Well, I was just saying is that if you did want one, that could be something that you had a thing that would accept it, and that's something you could just add to the bus of a recreated one. Now, if you're doing something that's a different animal that maybe you can't electrically connect it, but certainly, yeah, you don't have to include it, but it would be like, like a 1510 kind of deal, right? You could just add something on if you wanted to plug cartridges in. That wouldn't be difficult.
You would need a lot of extra memory because I remember using Profile on the cartridge, and the program was on the cartridge, and all the data was in the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, basically once you fired up Profile, it was seamless between the two banks.
The other thing too is, I mean, go ahead.
You'd need more, more RAM, of course.
True.
And that would allow you to bypass probably the cartridge aspect, unless you wanted to use the game cartridges, but then you'd have to have those on your mass storage.
The reason I was asking about the case is just, if to replace the old cases, so if you got like busted internals or, we would be able to make a new 2068 case with the cartridge, and the keyboard that it already comes with. It would just be a replacement, right?
Okay.
We don't have that right now. Whereas you can buy a Spectrum case. In fact, they make them in colors and clear and, they make them in all sorts of things, but it's just kind of more for the preservation of the original, right? And then from there, you can change things. Once you got the mold down, you can, maybe, okay, now we want to put a real keyboard, right? Let's make a mold with a real keyboard. It kind of depends on how much this stuff's going to cost. I mean, if it's going to cost $200 to make one case, I don't know. The market for that's going to be pretty tiny, but if we can get it down to maybe like, I don't know, $50 to make a case, that's much more reasonable. And
don't ever tighten the case screws all the way.
Yeah. Well, and then they're also longer length ones, right? The ones on the top, you'll push the little plastic out. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. But to start with is let's make a recreation of the original, and then once we got that down, now we can start changing things. Obviously, I think if we made an original one, make the cartridge slot thicker or bigger, just like the Portugal version, right? So that you can use all the cartridges, whether they're the Portuguese ones or the US ones, in this new case, right? You wouldn't have that height limitation that we do on the original 2068 America molds. But, you know, but once we got that down, then we can start, you know, changing the keyboard. Let's put a, you know, a real keyboard in there, you know, in that spot, right? And then we had to design a PCB that would fit in there properly, but we could change the mold, right, to fit what we desired to be put in there. And then, you know, that Timex terminal, I mean, it's the same basic case design, right? It's just they did basically that, right? They changed where the keyboard mold was. They you know, filled all that in probably and cut out whatever they needed to for that big keyboard, because there's two keyboards there. It looks like the keypad one right off to the right, and then the huge one that's taking up all the space on the where the regular keyboard would go.
Mhm.
But anyway, you would have the original mold, so it'd be easier to change the design. We just don't have an original design that we can even work with right now. So that, I guess, is just the first step. And you know, I think we would get more mileage out of recreating the original and then working you
And
know,
have subsets.
right. Once we
Yeah.
once we know how much it's going to cost, then we can kind of, you know, because if it's too costly, then I don't think it's probably worth doing it all, right? But it would still probably not be neat to get the 3D model.
Yeah, so the one model, if you do one model, it's gonna be pretty costly.
Right. Well,
Um,
we'd have to do like a run of 50 or maybe 100, kind of like what they do with the keyboards over in UK, right?
Well, exactly. It has to be done. So I would suggest actually not even like, I would probably like get one from Shapeways, and then you send it over to the Far East.
Okay.
Right. Right.
Do people say that anymore? The Far East?
No, Mark. As a matter of fact, you're
I
now
know one
banned
person
from
who
the
does it.
group.
One person.
They just call it
We
China
say
now.
Asia Pac or APAC.
Right. I want to pivot to Jay, because Jay has been very busy and keeping other people busy on the groups list with his renumbering saga. I think that's a good way to put it. Does that sound about right, Jay? A saga? You there, Jay? Your mic
You're muted.
is. It says you're not muted, but your microphone's not working. Is it plugged in, Jay?
Hello, Jay. Earth to Jay.
All right. So while Jay gets his microphone issues sorted, Adam,
Yes.
do you want to tell us about your the latest meeting of the Albuquerque
Well,
user
sure.
group?
Okay. Well, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before, around 1 o'clock, Carl and Ryan came over my place, and we hung out in the afternoon because I live in Albuquerque, by the way, in case there's anyone who hasn't heard from me before, because I haven't been in the last few meetings due to some health issues. So Ryan and Carl and myself all discovered that we live in the same town weirdly in this meeting. And so we've gotten together a few times, and Ryan just lives right up the street. And yeah, so yeah, Ryan came actually over a few minutes before Carl did, because Ryan has been trying to introduce me, and in a good way, to he's got a little side gig that he's into, collecting fountain pens. So he was showing me that, and then Carl came over and we chatted, went out for pizza, and I would say we were at the pizza joint for a while, like a couple hours probably, chatting about the 2060 expansion and some ideas we had for it.
Because of the fight, you remember?
Oh yeah, the fight too. Yeah,
we actually want details on the fight.
You can see it on the news. Just watch it on the news.
It's on TikTok.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But one of the things I wanted to do was, because I'm trying to, since I had my health issues, I wanted to, because I have a huge collection, as Tim was saying earlier, that you all of us are into these, or maybe it was you, Carl, who was saying we all have a large collection. We don't just have one thing. So I want to kind of trim it down to my Timex stuff, and basically I want to only have Z80 machines left, and get rid of my 6502 systems and some of my 2650 systems, which I actually have, which are kind of weird ones, like my Arcadia, I think I still have. But anyway, there's only so much time people have in their lives to spend on these things, and I also concentrate on things I like best. So I'm trying to give these things to other people who have less time than me, like Carl and Ryan. So we went through my garage, and I got Carl to take a few things, and Ryan's hesitant, strangely. He's like, I don't need anything. But we're going to have an Amiga day, because I have tons of Amigas, and we're going to have an Atari day, and we're going to set up some of my systems, and because they don't really know they don't know anything about those systems. And I'm going to invite some of my other local friends who are into Ataris and some Amigas, and we're going to, maybe I'll try to show them some Timex stuff too. And yeah, just mess around with some of these 16-bit.
That sounds like a computer show in the making.
Yeah, not all at my house, however, I guess, because that would be too many people. But yeah, I know people have jokingly said that you maybe come on by for the Albuquerque meeting, but if anyone's ever close to Albuquerque, people come to Santa Fe or whatever, contact me, and swing on by. It has happened before with the Astrocade people, so it could happen with Timex people too.
We're just right on Route 66,
Yeah.
So what I want to know though, Adam, is when Mark and Jeff and I show up at your door, which room do we get?
Well, it depends what you bring for me.
We'll bring you some beer.
What do you got there?
Paul,
1979 buy, sell, trade, swap periodical.
Oh, look at that. Is that regional? Buy?
No, that was national.
Really?
Out of California.
Oh, that's crazy.
Well, it's before Computer Shopper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Way before.
How did you get in on that?
Subscribed.
Oh,
goodness.
Lord. But how did you even find out? I mean, this is the thing about, back before we had CompuServe and crap. How did you even find out?
Well, he was from California. That's where they had all the hobbyist computers, where all the Altairs and all those kind of guys, right?
Yep. Well, like I said, I started in 76.
But were you out in California, Paul, or
nope? I don't remember when I subscribed, but this was mail order, and I identified my occupation title since it was technical related. But if anybody's interested,
well, do me a favor, read something that's in it. Like, give me an example of what's in there. Like, read like the first or second paragraph, because I'm just a little, like, it's like a computer shopper, huh? So what are they selling?
Yeah, basically it was just all ads.
Okay.
But local, individual as well as commercial.
So what kind of ads? Give us an example of an ad.
Well, right off the front page, let me get my readers.
Yep.
Second paragraph, a TI silent 725 coupler. 10 CPS to 15 CPS to 30 CPS.
Oh, dear Lord.
Wow.
$1,000 or offered.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Yes.
So if you're interested in antique prices for computer stuff.
Wow.
So that's a modem coupler, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
$1,000 or best.
Well, wasn't it also a printer as well, though? I think.
I
think it also could print.
The Silent 700 series was basically a teletype machine, but it's all thermal. You basically I had one for work, and you basically have
your
a
ad too?
coupler on top. plug it in, and then you're online like you are on like a teletype machine,
Yeah.
but it's all thermal.
They were
You
willing
load
to
up
trade
paper.
for a CRT or an 8-inch floppy. But it's like 32 pages.
Did you ever end up buying anything out of there or selling anything?
No. I went from the Motorola straight to the Timex when they came out.
You could find a lot of stuff too. You know, look at the Popular Electronics and the Radio Electronic magazines back in the late 70s. You know, I think one of the, you know, Popular Electronics had that article, right? How to build the Altair, if I recall. I
Yeah,
think
the
it's
S100 bus material
76.
stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, then they had a bunch of ads that were in the back of those magazines, you know, for hobbyist related compute, you know, those hobby computers back then.
Yeah.
The you know, the S100 bus systems and you know, all those obscure.
Remember the old reader service cards? Man.
Yeah. Oh, and
Yeah.
Tim, before I forget, I'll take those schematics or those blueprints if you those
Okay.
Exatron. Yeah, I'll scan those in.
Yeah, you have a big scanner, Carl. Yeah.
Well,
Great.
not that big, but I mean, I'd have to cut it up, but I can stitch it together and it'll be fine.
Okay. Hey,
You
Louis.
shouldn't talk about Carl's size now, okay?
Low hanging fruit, Tim. Low hanging fruit.
I was just returning the favor.
Yeah.
Wow. Y'all are brutal. Louis, do you want to talk about the Discord?
Hey folks, yeah. So just a quick plug for those of you that may or may not know, Discord is a very popular chat client type of functionality. Think of it as IRC on steroids for those of you that were on IRC back in the day, like me. And I am trying to show what it looks like. I don't want to show the whole desktop. Hold on, let me see if I can find just the app. Come on, Zoom. Okay, no, you're going to refuse me, aren't you?
Is that the one you have to install an application or a program?
You can do it,
Can you do it through the web?
through an application. There is an application. There you go. Hopefully everybody's seeing what the
I
Discord
think you can just do it through the browser too. There's a if you don't want to install the app, you can do it through the browser.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have the app on my iPad. That's pretty handy, and then just the browser on the computer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a great little app. As you can see, I'm on a pile of different interest groups. Everybody with their own topics and whatnot. But we created one for the list. So if you want to be a little more interactive during the day, you can get on there. I did send the link. There's a permanent link now on the mailing list. So you can grab that there. And if you run into any issues, you can reach out to the Clueless engineer, Brett, or myself. We're currently the admins. And if anybody else wants to be an admin, I'll gladly give that over. But I've been posting the stuff from Bill Miller's collection that I had pictures from. And there's been some discussion about what does it mean and so forth. So if you want to see even more pictures of Bill's stuff, that is a place you can go and take a look at it.
Yeah, craziness.
It was a lot of stuff.
The other thing too, the big thing with Discord is I don't think any of you guys are really gamers, right? I mean, maybe some of you are. But there was a thing that came out before this because you were playing online games, but most of the online games back in this time frame when this came out, they didn't have voice chat, right? So you had to type stuff in the we used to play World of Warcraft, right? And so when you would raid in World of Warcraft, you needed everybody to be vocal. You had to be able to talk to everybody real time. And there was a program that came out before Discord. I think it was called TeamSpeak, which kind of did that, right? Everybody would join into the TeamSpeak server, and then basically you put your headset on and everybody could talk to everybody just like we're doing now. right? And that way the raid leader could say, okay, we're gonna pull the boss and everybody get in position, so everybody could be listening in chat. So down, if he scrolls down further, there is a voice channel here. I mean, yeah, so I mean, you can actually go in there and chat with other people if they, have their mic on, right? There's no video here, but
Right. Ryan was saying he wanted to try to do that maybe one of these days.
There's actually video too.
They do video, yeah. So
Oh, wow.
it does a lot of the functionality of Zoom. You could also do that here. There's people that stream video of, like, for example, playing games, and then you have a pile of people commenting.
Neat.
I have another group that on the arcade side. That's another hobby of mine. We get together and we watch movies. So kind of a group movie party across all of the US, kind of situation. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to chime in about Discord. I
So
hope to see you guys
I'll
in
give
there.
you.
We could
you
join
can
the-
demo the
We
you
could
can
join
demo the
Ryan
video.
and
there.
Adam.
What's that?
We could join
You want
Ryan
to
and Adam.
demo that. I
still
just
didn't
jumped
hear your
into the.
question. I still didn't hear you, David.
Oh, I'm saying we could join you guys, Ryan and Adam,
Oh,
through video, through Discord.
yeah, I guess. I mean, I think the Zoom is fine, but I think Ryan just wanted to test it out one of these days.
But you could take us to the pizza parlor.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Live stream your fight.
That's right.
Yeah.
Either
Fist
that
to the
or
face.
open up your Albuquerque group Timex Sinclair meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, you know.
Yeah. Why are they so closed?
what
Yeah,
fight are
they're
we
not.
talking about?
You guys just don't
What-
show up.
What fight are we talking about? I don't remember. What was there a fight?
Oh,
timing
did you?
is that?
Okay, so Carl, I posted something. Was it yesterday or today? Yesterday, I think. That like after we finished our pizza, there were these Commodore guys at the next table also doing an upgrade for their Commodore, and I said afterwards we beat them up.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
If you're going to do the Discord at the pizza place, does Discord support the file transfer of pizza?
I don't know. We'll have to try it out. And if it does, let us know how the pizza is after you get it.
TP,
Pizza
like an
protocol.
IRC
Pizza.
used to be. Send me a pizza.
That'll be worth it. Then we can join in pizza too. So
Yeah. Yeah, that would be worth it.
Yeah, I just said on the group that I was going to try to, like, when I'm sitting here messing around with retro stuff, I'd just be there at least in the audio chat if anybody wanted to kind of hang out for a bit if we see each other. Thought it might be kind of a fun thing.
I will advocate for IRC because there is two native IRC clients for the QL. No one's done a Discord yet for the QL, but there are two IRC clients for the QL. So,
Tim, you're doing something like that to get on, because you have a bridge between IRC and another channel that we're on, correct?
actually, the guy in Scotland, I think, set that up. So they had the QL forums IRC channel, and they built a bridge to Discord, and most everyone's on Discord, where it goes back and forth. But there's like two of us that are on IRC, so I did an IRC client as a demo, just a proof of concept, a couple of years back. Dylan Jones, who's known for the Sinclair world for quite a while, liked it and really worked on it. I mean, my thing was barely passable as an IRC client. It was just proof of concept. But we made it mostly compliant to the RFCs for IRC. And he's like, okay, I'm done with it. I'm not going to play with it anymore. So I'm putting the final touches on getting that out the door on version 2. So sometime the next month or so. So that's why it's fresh in my memory what's going on, and do some testing and make sure that it's decent and works.
So I got a question. So you're running IRC, you're running your emulator, because I thought that one day you said you don't use your QL anymore. You use emulators, right? So you have an IRC client.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so you have a IRC client on an emulator for a QL. It's awesome.
Either SMS, the SMSQ emulator QPC2 or SQULX. I think Q emulator also. All four of those support the TCP/IP stack.
Oh, nice, nice.
And
Very
it's
cool.
actually relatively easy to create. It's just that Dylan did a lot. I mean, I built the frame. Dylan finished the house. It was that kind of, because it was relatively easy to do, but he made it mostly compliant. There's something that's not working, but it really does a really good job.
So one other random question: how many QL users are there? I mean, obviously, like we're 2068 people, and there's all of what 40 of us left probably. How many QL people?
I shipped out 19 boxes
Dozens.
this year.
I want to say there's a few. I'm probably the biggest in the US. There's a few others that are also in the US that are tinkering. And then there are a number of people in the UK, of course, that are big into it still. So
is Quanta still around?
I think officially, but then they've been very inactive, I think, lately.
Okay.
The biggest group is the QL forums group, who does the chat and the website. And the guy that was hosting it also hosts the QL wiki, and he also hosts Dylan's webpage. If you don't know, Dylan Jones has the most comprehensive QL webpage as far as software downloads and information.
So, yeah, it's big.
Yeah. If any 2068 emulators supported a TCP/IP stack, it really wouldn't be that difficult to create the IRC client, at least a demo version. But I don't think any of them supported TCP/IP stack at all. So who's raising their hand to do that for us? Anybody?
Not me.
Well, I know they had a
Talk to the
struggle just to
Thesaurus
get
guy,
the
he could
QL
do
to
it.
do it.
Pardon?
It was a struggle, I think, to get the QL to do it. And then once they cracked that barrier.
So it was originally done with Richard Zidlicki with UQLX, and then everyone else who did emulators just used that mechanism. So they use the TCP device. And all you do is treat the TCP device like any other file and just say open or close and read and write, just like you would a file or a channel or anything else.
Yeah, it's sockets, right? So.
Well, at the QL level, no, it is sockets at the Linux or the host level. But at the QL level, the TCP device is just like a serial device or a printer, or a file. You just open it.
Yeah, so it's a file. It's doing it almost like the Unix Linux way, treating it as a file. Gotcha.
And to get it to work, so basically, if you're typing away, you can still get chat messages. So the problem was, how do you type stuffing and still get chat messages? So basically, the program quickly pulls the serial, the TCP port, pulls the keyboard, pulls the TCP port, and it goes back and forth pulling both. And as you type away, it's just catching your typing and putting on the screen, but at the same time catching these messages. Oh, there's a message. Let me print that out. So it's still, if you can sit there and do nothing, it's not waiting for you to type something, it'll still do the chat. But as you're typing away a chat, you'll still see other messages coming up. So it goes quickly back and forth between the two, between the keyboard and the TCP port. So that was probably the hardest thing to do, is to figure that out and get it working, but it did. And then of course Dylan did great things with it. I mean, my initial code was like 4K and his is like 70K or something like that. It's greatly expanded.
A moment ago, I saw that Lewis was holding up his QL. Is that something that was picked up this past weekend, or is that one you've had for a while?
That was Bill's.
Oh, okay.
Bill's. It's funny because of course I grew up with all the little magazines and everything teaching Spectrum ZX or ZX if you're using the British lingo, programming in BASIC, and I always wanted a Spectrum, and I looked at the QL and I always thought it was cool. It's like a really cool design, in my opinion anyway, but I never pulled the trigger on one. So it's interesting how this came in. Now, unfortunately, it's in it needs repairs. It does not work. So a few projects.
Second one, right?
And there's a second one. The second one seems to be working good. So,
Okay.
or well, I should say. So,
Yeah, because I remember my pile had 3 and then suddenly had 2.
yeah,
But
no,
no,
I'm glad I grabbed at least one working one, so I can make one work out of 2.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, reseat the chips would be the first piece of advice.
Just like the arcades. That's what we
Yeah.
do on the PCBs. We like pop every chip out and push it back in, see if
That's right.
corrosion has gotten in there.
You pull it out like the Nintendo cartridge and blow on it, then put it back in.
Nope.
Works every time. Works every time.
Little alcohol. Remember that doing Nintendo? A little alcohol. Yeah.
Don't forget to rub it on the carpet.
There you go.
Was the
70%.
alcohol for cleaning, or was it to
Yeah.
take your mind off of the problems?
Yeah, what alcohol are we talking about here? What kind?
Speaking about the carpet, when I was in Ohio in the wintertime, we got very low humidity. And so I would shuffle along on the carpet and then go touch my QL and zap. So luckily I had a desk that was metal. And so I had this habit of basically, if this is the desk, I would go and just touch my finger to the desk before I sat down to make sure I ground myself. Otherwise, if I had something running and I come back to sit down and I've lost it. So I had this habit for years of just grounding myself by touching my finger.
Yeah, it's like now that it's becoming because it's very dry here in New Mexico. I'm at a metal desk and glass, and I do that whenever I sit down or stand near my computer or what have you. Yeah.
We're not going to talk about you grabbing yourself, Tim.
What is going on in this meeting? What is happening?
I just wanted to show y'all
Oh,
the
wow.
manual for the Pico. Some of you may recognize this sort of layout style. And then on the inside, it also has a slightly familiar looking presentation.
Oh, very cool. Did you use the same fonts? That's awesome.
No, similar, but not quite the same.
Did you check with Timex for copyright?
I'm sorry?
Did you check with Timex for copyright?
Oh yeah, you know what? I'm on
and
such
feel so
thin ice
baby.
with Timex right now that
Not just Timex, but the lady, or who do we have on that did the manual?
Chuck During. Yeah. So
Timex told us we can do whatever we'd like.
The finished product was probably done via the art department.
the finished product was done. Oops, sorry. I'm trying to switch my stupid camera here. There was a company, and I don't have the manual handy, but there was a company that Chuck worked with in terms of doing the layout and stuff. But the production of the entire manual, that was all on Chuck and his company. It wasn't Timex that did that. They contracted that whole thing out.
David, what tool did you use?
Well, I used Affinity Publisher, which is cheap but not free. I've tried to use.
We'll get you to move to Scribus. It's free.
You know what? I tried it like 10 years ago, and that's how I lost some of my hair.
Wasn't that? It's not that bad. I'm
Says
looking
the
at.
man.
I had the Scribus manual. Did I loan it to somebody? Never got it back. Hope not.
And don't forget, Dave. Don't forget, Dave, to put some of those pictures from the Timex manual in there. Gotta have those pictures.
So actually, I used some artwork from a person who does illustrations for role-playing games, and they are kind of sci-fi-y illustrations instead of cats.
Do they do them special for you?
No, well, no. She has a Patreon, and if you if you subscribe to her Patreon, she has a ton of artwork that she gives folks away to use in their own publications. Yeah. And so it was funny because I sent her a message about this, and she's like, "That's got to be the strangest use of my artwork I've ever seen."
Can you go over some of the specs for the Pico thing that you're talking about?
I'm sorry, what was that, Jay?
Can you do some of the specs on the Pico thing you're talking about?
Sure. So if you're not familiar with the Raspberry Pi Pico, it's this awesome little 40-pin computer. And it can run up to about 270 megahertz if you overclock it. We're not running it at that speed, but this this device that Ricardo and Gustavo and Jeff and Tim have all worked on together has a Raspberry Pi Pico for a brain. It has 512K static RAM that you'll be able to do all kinds of crazy things with. It has 512K of a flash ROM, and Gustavo's special version of the Timex operating system is in the flash ROM, as well as a slightly modified version of the ZX Spectrum ROM. So actually you can use it to run your 2068 in as a Spectrum, basically, and it will work with loading and saving off of the Pico, because the ROM routines are slightly edited. And then it's got an SD card slot that you can put the world's smallest SD card in it and still have room left over for, I don't know, every single program ever produced for the 2068 and the Spectrum. And then the other sort of cool feature about this is that the hardware is open source, and the code that runs on the Pico is written in MicroPython, and so that will be available, and you'll be able to write your own programs, write your own extensions in MicroPython, and it will load those when it boots up.
Hi, hello, David. This is Gustavo.
Do you have a price for this thing?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Do you have a price for this thing?
We're working on it. It's not going to be crazy. I can tell you that.
And Gustavo, you're doing the development on some of this too, right?
Yes, correct. Hello, how are you? Hello, the group. Yes, one of the most important differentiation with the rest of the storage is because this system support in parallel tape and also SD card. You can exchange between two devices. You can load from tape and then save to the SD. Just only with a simple command. I add all the functionality in the XROM free space and also in the little home ROM space. Both ROMs are full. I have only single byte of free in memory, but apparently works excellent. The speed is really faster and support save, load, very free, and merge. And also data structure, you can save arrays on the disk with the 100% compatibility of the Timex operating system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it works with tap files, which are, sort of the lingua franca of modern ZX Spectrum storage. And tap files are just this sort of digital version of a tape file, literally, because when you save on tape with a 2068 or with a Spectrum, it writes out this little header that has information about the program, and then there's this brief gap, and then the actual program gets written to the tape, right? Tap file is the same thing. Except it's bytes instead of,
Actually, isn't a TZX file work that way? I thought a tap file was more like a memory dump.
TZX files work the same way. You're thinking maybe of an NMI, like a
That's one interrupt.
Yeah, the NMIs were the dumps.
yeah, and then say which was a dump of just the memory itself. It's the dump of the state of the computer, which is great for video games that you can't crack to turn into a tap file.
The reason that why we not support TCX is related to the complexity, because it's more compact, the code, if we use a tab file. Tab file is more easy, more reliable. According to my space, I have a single byte free. That's impossible to add more functionality or more complex decoding. The reason is to use the most simplest format and worldwide adopted. That's why we use a tab as a standard. If you need to convert the file, you can use a computer to convert to TSX or any another format to tab. Tab is the native format for this.
I get you. But if you have 1 byte free, that's 8 bits. You still have 8 bits.
You still have 8 bits. Yes. Imagine what you can pack into that.
Forget TAP is just a 3-letter shortcut for tape. TAPE, but it's just TAP. Yeah.
Well, it's just the bytes that are contained in that tape header plus the bytes in the body. And so the bytes in the body are literally the bytes in memory from, beginning, well, wherever that starts. Was it system variable or some of the, I think just program to the end. Yeah. And
Exactly.
so it's very simple and it's very easy to use and do things with.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's why we need to interrupt with the standard tape routines in the ROM. And that's why we choose the tab file format, because it's very easy and similar to the original Timex or also Sinclair routines. Okay, the compatibility is really good for this kind of.
Yeah, I think TZX is more if you were wanting to actually maybe TZX is some of its features are kind of analogous to the Grease Weasel in a way. Would you say, David?
Exactly, but and also another functionality, we support load blocks without header. That support too. You can load headers or blocks or non-standard format like games, for example. Remember, many games use a header in the first basic program and then the screen and the code. Some programs does not include the header on the tape, and we support this format too. Okay, but using a single load quote, that is could be possible, and also adapt to load the next block in the tab file.
Yeah. It's really nice.
100% compatibility with the existing software. You don't need to add any asterisks or any another instruction. You have a program running in tape. You just only copy on TS Pico SD, and that's it. Not need modify nothing.
Yep.
I have a question. With the Raspberry Pi Pico, you could do Wi-Fi. So the potential of having a Timex Sinclair 2068 on the internet sounds very exciting.
Yes, no, we have a project for the future to include the network, but actually we are waiting for the network commands and also the manual for the Tenet. The idea is to support the original Tenet commands made by Timex. That is the idea, but we are in delay to obtain those commands.
Well, I know on the Spectrum Next, right, it can support Wi-Fi because it's got its own OS. I mean, it looks Spectrum-ish, right? Because it boots up and it gives you the menu like the later Spectrums did, but it'll support Wi-Fi. It's got a Wi-Fi or network stack in there, so it's possible. It's possible.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, but the problem is not support Wi-Fi. The problem is to interrupt with the basic, because the TS Pico, you can create a program and also then decide according to the instructions. For example, you can load a directory inside the matrix in a alphanumeric matrix. And also you can then scan the matrix and see what files you have on the disk. This is very high potential operating system inside this ROM.
And let me translate from from Argentinian to English. By matrix,
yes, please.
Gustavo
matrix,
means
yes.
an array variable. It
Yes,
took me a bit,
exactly.
he's talking about the matrix in our meetings. He talks about the matrix. I'm thinking, I know he's not making a Mr. Anderson joke, and it took me a second to realize, oh yeah, he means an array variable. Anyway,
maybe he really is, because your last name is Anderson.
Right. He could have been making it, but you have to say it with the right inflection. Anyway,
Mr. Anderson.
There you go. So we have a couple minutes left, and as Adam is wont to do, he's reminded me of such things. Our next meeting is Sunday, November 19th, and that's at 2 p.m. Eastern. And the reason that we meet on Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern is because 2 to 4 a.m. is unreasonable for folks in Europe. Although, Hugo and Johnny, I can't believe you guys have stayed up for this nonsense.
It's a pleasure.
I'm so glad you guys came.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this has been one of the most international meetings we've had, in a while, between Argentina and Portugal. We're only missing our New Zealand contingent.
If I can throw out a tidbit of trivia.
Yeah.
One of the early systems that were computerized where I worked, we used 43-bit words.
43.
43-bit.
Was some of that error checking?
Not much of it.
Okay.
Who was the manufacturer of that abomination?
Yeah, really.
Western Electric.
Oh, that explains it right there. Yeah. Yeah. They probably use the extra bits to take our money.
David, do we have an agenda for that meeting?
We do not have an agenda for that meeting.
Do we have any agendas coming up?
But hopefully hopefully Jay will be able to talk about his renumbering experiments. Bruno wants to know what brand of 3-inch discs were available in the US. I remember Maxell.
Yep.
Yeah. Were they the ones with the silver and red box, or was that somebody else?
It was red.
Yeah, that was them, right?
Okay,
very good. Wow.
Those are the boxes I have.
Oh, 3-inch, not 3.5 though, right?
3, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never saw 3-inch really.
Well, Amdec, had their 3-inch drives. So,
is someone looking to buy those 3-inch drives from Bill's collection? I can get rid of them.
No, I have 2. Thank you very much.
No, whoever asked the question, I think was
Bruno. Bruno might
okay.
want some 3-inch drives.
Of course.
They seem to be in good shape. They're very kind of heavy. There's got some density to them. So
yeah, they're good bricks. So yeah, Adam, to your question, we do need to develop some agendas.
Okay, I was just curious if you had anyone you had in mind that you were trying to find or anything like that.
Well, I have a couple folks. Go ahead.
Sure.
I'd like to suggest, we didn't really talk too much about the 2060 stuff, but Ryan wrote up kind of what we had talked about, and I would like to, discuss that with the rest of the group and get other people's ideas, because I think we came up with a pretty good foundation for what a modern version of that would be. So speaking of the TS Pico, that's something that actually could fit inside of that, right?
Absolutely.
And it wouldn't be sticking out of the back of your 2068 like a raging PCB would. But like all the other ones are, that we have, because we don't have any place to put them into that looks aesthetically pleasing. But not
some
that
of us like bare PCBs.
well, I'm
with,
not saying Jeff,
naked.
yeah, Jeff, that's not to say that it's not aesthetically pleasing, but you know what I mean.
Jeff worked
It's a
very
different
hard
aesthetic.
on that PCB.
Yeah.
It's got curves, nodules, bumps,
all the right
Okay.
places.
all the right places.
Three-dimensional.
That's
Because
right.
one of the things, like we talked about, if you read the thing that he put, we were thinking about putting 3 expansion ports on the back of the 2060, right?
Yeah.
So you'll have 2 2068 expansion ports, and you'll have a ZX Spectrum expansion port on the back. So you could actually plug 2 2068 things in, and you could actually plug the ZX Spectrum hardware straight into the back of that, without having to get a twister board, right? That would kind of already be part of the PCB. And we actually were thinking about making the PCB, the base PCB that's inside the 2060, expandable. Maybe think about it in 3 sections. So you have one that comes off of the back of the 2068, and it takes up maybe a third of the 2060 width, right? And it would have a expansion connector on it, so you could put a middle board in, right? And that would have an expansion connector, so you could put the third and last board in.
Mhm.
And so you could have different things on these boards depending on what features that you wanted to kind of put into the 2060, just to keep the cost down, maybe if you just wanted the basics, or you could just go hog wild and have all kinds of crap in there.
Well, Carl, are you gonna be able to make the next
You should be able to.
okay.
Yeah.
Then let's pick up again on that, potential 2060 and whatever that next version of the 2068 is. Because I don't know how many folks completed that little survey, but Ryan did some heavy lifting. So let's yeah, power light. Let's pick up on that again on Sunday.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. As always, it's been a blast.